Alrighty, folks. Hello and welcome to today's MegaCast. I hope you are ready for this because today we are talking about creating a data strategy that ignites business innovation. I love this topic because it's all about being in a growth mindset that involves creativity and employs innovation. How can we approach the hydra that is data and rather than it sprout yet another head for us to deal with, use innovative approaches to harness the power of data to make us more competitive in today's market? That's exactly what we'll dig into today. The key components of a successful data strategy, from data governance and quality assurance to analytics and insights generation. You'll gain insights into the best practices for aligning data initiatives with business goals, leveraging emerging technologies, and fostering a culture of data-driven decision-making to unlock new opportunities for growth and for innovation. And here to help us navigate this topic are the awesome folks at Pure Storage, Nutanix, Couchbase, and SentinelOne. These industry experts will be sharing how to build a data strategy to help you level up and ignite business innovation. This is going to be a great day, and I can't wait to get started. So let's dive into it. My name is Mackenzie Puddesy, and I am a moderator here at Actual Tech Media, and I have my fellow moderators here in the wings and on live chat, Jess Steinbach, Scott Becker, and Keith Ward helping me out today. Okay, let's talk prizes. I know you are excited and you're probably waiting for this. Today on the MegaCast, you could win one of 3 Kindle Scribes, and we'll also be giving away a $300 Amazon gift card every 30 minutes. And as I mentioned in the housekeeping chat this morning, you can find the full T's and C's linked in the handouts tab if you have any questions about that. There's also a best question prize, a $50 Amazon gift card for each session. So if you haven't already checked out that questions tab, say a quick hello, bonjour, hola, Howard, aloha, or whatever greeting you like. So say hello and give a shout out to the awesome community here with us today. And hey, with that last little thing, I think we are ready to rock. To get things started, we have the amazing Philip Russum. He is a consultant and analyst for data management and analytic, and he'll be with my fellow moderator here, Keith Ward, to open up the session with a topical keynote. So with that, I'm going to kick things over to you, Keith, and have you get us started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the MegaCast. I am delighted to have on today Philip Russum to discuss some of the issues you're going to be hearing about in just a bit here. Now, Philip is an independent industry analyst and consultant. Though independent today, though, Philip has worked at leading IT analyst firms, including Gartner, TDWI, and Forrester. For decades, Philip's coverage area as an analyst has focused on data management and advanced analytics. Plus how the two must work together to help organizations modernize and transform, along with keeping pace with emerging technologies and evolving business environments. So, Philip, welcome. It's a delight to have you on today.
Yeah, good to see you too, Keith.
Absolutely. Let's dive right in. So get us started by explaining, Philip, what people have in mind when they talk to you about data strategy. So tell us how you and other data professionals define data strategy and give us some examples of such strategies.
Yeah, everybody seems to have their own peculiar wrinkle when it comes to data strategy. But, I've been talking to people and doing doing advisory consulting with people. One of the areas is data strategy. So when I talk to a lot of people over the years in a variety of industries, I'm finding that when a mature organization takes data strategy pretty seriously, then there are usually multiple strategies for data. So I think in our conversation, you'll see that there are typically multiple strategies that all work together. And, some strategies are really big and broad, like you'll have a big, broad strategy for all of IT, maybe a more narrow one for data, and then for certain data applications, you'll have yet another sub-strategy. So there's strategies within strategies a lot of times. But, I think especially for people who want to really get their house in order with data strategy, they need to think about 2 very special areas. First of all, a broad area that I think of as technical data strategies, and there's a second area, which is business data strategies. So data strategies from the viewpoint of technology or business, they tend to be different. So for a technical data strategy, that's typically about how data will be managed. So your strategy will help you to determine what kinds of technologies you're going to use, development best practices, what kind of IT team structures you'll need to build data solutions, how you're going to and then work your way into the nitty gritty of how we're going to create data, capture data, store data. And the strategies for data on the technology side can also involve some substandards. Like you want to have standards for data quality. You want to create some metrics for quantifying the state of quality so that you know if your data quality is getting better, worse, staying the same, et cetera. Now, with a business data strategy, it's a little different because that's really about how data will be leveraged by the business for some kind of business advantage or the quest for operational excellence and so forth. So business data strategies, they're really about how an enterprise and its organizational units, like departments and business units, how they're going to achieve greater operational efficiency by looking at data. Data gives you a view right into all kinds of business processes, doesn't it? And looking at that, you can tell, how are we doing financially? How are we doing in terms of operations? Are we meeting our numbers in terms of what we're producing and so forth? And so other things that are part of a business data strategy is what kind of data are we going to collect as we work through our business processes and so forth? And then exactly what does that data tell us about the business? And so business strategies can also include things like things that I think of as more on the governance side of things. So a business data strategy is gonna help you determine, are we compliant when it comes to our use of data? There's a lot of regulations, legislation, et cetera. Are we respecting our customer privacy as we use data in the operation of the business and so forth? And of course, one of the hot ones in recent years is security. Is our data secure? Is our enterprise secure? And what strategies do we do to assure security for data?
Right. Absolutely. Phil, thank you for that overview. It's always nice to define our terms up top, really useful. Now, let's drill down into business innovations that can be enabled by data strategy. So the question is this: how can a data strategy impact business innovation, and what kinds of innovations can be served by that data?
Mm. Well, I think as background, you've probably noticed that a lot of organizations want to disrupt. They're tired of doing business as usual. Also, they know that they need to go through some kind of business transformation so that the organization is better positioned for the way things are done today. There's been a lot of changes in the 21st century. With the arrival of cloud and other technologies, but also the pandemic have made a lot of changes. And of course, economies just keep going up and down, up and down. So for a lot of people, they do want to make changes in how they run the business. And for a lot of them, what they really want to be doing is to run the organization by the numbers. And, to a certain degree, organizations have always been doing that because that's what business reporting does for you. It gives you basic numbers, but people want more numbers. They want numbers representing more business processes, more business entities like the customer, product, financials, et cetera. And a lot of people do have more data to work from that viewpoint because they are deploying a lot more applications. So a lot of operational applications for ERP, CRM, they generate a lot of data that can be used to run the company by the numbers. And, that's kind of low end, though, just to be honest. A lot of companies have to get better at running the business based on data as facts instead of sort of guessing at things. Let's go to the high end. There's a lot of brouhaha in recent years about artificial intelligence, but also, the analytics in general, no matter what form it is, that's on the rise as well. So a lot of companies want to get to being data driven, but they want to get beyond that and become analytics driven. So they want to be able to apply analytics, not just for strategic planning, which a lot of companies have been doing for years. And they used statistical analysis and dimensional data modeling and stuff like that, data warehouses and traditional stuff. They want to get beyond that, and they want to go to predicting the future. And that's why before generative AI came along, the big swell was producing more predictive analytics, so that companies are able to not just constantly drive by looking in the rearview mirror, but they drive by looking through the windshield. That way you can see events coming, and you can see opportunities coming, so that you can seize those opportunities. You can see potential problems coming, so you can figure out strategies for avoiding those problems. So for a lot of people, they're trying to kind of modernize, if you will, and get to the point where they're much more data driven, much more analytics driven.
And I think, Phil, for people who haven't really gone too far down this road, it can kind of feel overwhelming. How do I get from here to there? So when an enterprise wants to create data strategies for their business, for the things you talk about, analytics and all that, where should they start? What should that look like? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I think a good advice for just about any kind of organization is to get your ducks in line by putting business goals first. And so I would say, ideally, most organizations should start by defining their business goals, so that you need to work out, and the highest ranks of upper management need to figure out and answer questions like, what must our enterprise do in the future? How are we needing to operate differently? What new markets or new products or services do we need to embrace? Also, other questions like, what behaviors, what corporate behaviors do we need to adjust so that we treat our customers better, treat our partners better? What protections must we enhance to fortify ourselves, to make ourselves more secure and more compliant? So ideally, the business should decide what direction the organization is going, and the business should decide what the highest priorities are. And then they should be able to bring those ideas to the rest of the company, or, if you're in a government agency or healthcare organization, whatever your enterprise is. And so then people start asking questions. Well, how does IT in general support the goals that are new and, as stated from upper management? And then you work your way down through the rest of IT, and what does every department in IT need to do? And you get down to, what does data management need to do? What does analytics need to do? What are related things like reporting, business intelligence? What do they need to do to really support, so that we can succeed in attaining these newest business goals? And so, just be careful. Anybody who's involved with IT, whether you're in IT, like data people like me, or you're a business person who relies heavily on getting your job done right and efficiently because of IT support. Doesn't matter where you are. We all get kind of seduced by the new shiny thing. And in recent years, there's been a ton of new shiny stuff, and you have to know about that. You have to educate yourself of the new stuff, but don't be seduced by it. What you should do is, first of all, figure out, what are we doing as a company? What's our mission? What are our goals? And then you start backing that up with IT, right on down to, what does data and analytics need to do to support the newly developed business goals.
Well, Phil Brussum, you've done a great job laying the groundwork for this MegaCast today. I want to thank you for your time and expertise here.
All right. Well, you're welcome, and good to see you, Keith.
You too. Folks, it's going to be a great MegaCast. We're off to a great start already with this introduction, with this keynote by Philip Brussum. So enjoy the rest of the event. And now back to you.
Thank you, Keith. That was excellent. Thank you, Philip. I really like that approach of, hey, what does our business need to do? What do we want to do? And what are our goals? And how do we use tools to make that happen, rather than just focusing on what's new, what's shiny, what's the buzzing new trend within this realm. So, keep that in mind today as you go about and listen to the presenters and think of, what are the next steps we want to employ for our organization. Now, before we jump into our first session, we have a question up for you all. This is a poll asking, what's your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company? Is it right away? Maybe less than 6 months? Is it 6 to 12, 12 to 24? You've got a longer term time frame. Or maybe you're just not sure yet, and that is also okay. You're here to figure things out and get a lay of the land. Now, I'm going to close that poll in just a quick second. We are starting off on a high note here, and I'm excited to introduce you all to our first speaker. And first up in the lineup is Pure Storage. And from Pure Storage, we have Kevin Rickson. He is the Product Marketing Director. And with that, I'm just going to kick things right over to you, Kevin. Thanks a lot.
Hi and welcome. My name is Kevin Rickson. I'm a product marketing director with Pure Storage. And today what we're going to focus in on is the future of storage, how you can balance risk with innovation, especially as it pertains to your data. Got quite a few things to cover, but we're going to get through them in a short amount of time. I do promise you that, and hopefully it'll be a little entertaining for you as well. So first of all, let's start off by taking a look at what we mean by risk and innovation. The main thing is that when we talk about innovation, what we're really looking at is the ways that you can add more value to your organization. And I think probably the biggest area where most people in IT are asked to do it and hopefully can find new ways to do this is to make sure you're responding to the needs of the business. This could be new markets that an organization wants to enter into. It could be things that are very, customer, client, or constituent facing, but it can also be building more efficiency within the organization. Obviously, every great organization is looking to maximize their efficiencies, and IT has a huge role to play there, making sure that the right data gets to the right people at the right time. So any of those projects are really ones that can add a lot of boost to the organization's effectiveness as well as efficiency. The second area has to do with new technologies. Now, I think probably the best example that we can use here is AI, artificial intelligence, and I think specifically Gen AI. So the reason that most organizations are leaning toward this, I mean, it really is two different things. One, you can be using AI models and Gen AI-based tools to help within the organization, again, for that efficiency that we were talking about. And AI is a fantastic tool for that. If you can streamline processes, if you can take mundane tasks and automate them, then again, the rest of the employee base can focus on those things that are more value add, just like IT is always trying to do. So there's that, but then there's also things that could be customer or client or constituent facing. Obviously, we've all seen, chatbots and things along those lines, but there's so many other different ones. And the reason that AI is such a good example, especially when we're talking about data, is AI is so data hungry. When you think about the way we've done data storage in the past, it was almost always, let's get some data storage for this particular workload. It could be an application, a database, what have you. And let's get it as close to the where the data is and where the application is so that we can reduce latencies, all that great stuff. And so what happens is, there's a lot of silos of data now. With AI, and especially as you are trying to build your own models, they're absolutely dependent on all that data. And now we have to pool all that data back together so that we can build these large language models, these AI models, to feed the Gen AI models, et cetera. And then, of course, AI generates just a ton of data as well, coming out the other end of the model, if you will. So, and then, constantly refining it, et cetera. So data is really at the heart of any successful AI project. And it does require thinking a little bit differently about how we do data storage. And that's just one example of the new ways in which we can leverage the data that we already have. Obviously, every organization, and especially IT, is looking to use data in new ways, analytics tools, making sure that there are data lakes and other repositories so that we can not only know, how our systems are doing, but more importantly, how the organization can do better, become more efficient, the right data getting to the right people at the right time. It helps us not only with those efficiencies, as I said, but also the new opportunities, ways that we can serve our customers or our clients or our constituents better. And then, this is one that kind of straddles the line a little bit, but bear with me a second. New regulations, okay? And the reason that I put it under innovation is that a lot of times innovation winds up being sparked by our feet being held to the fire by the need to, making sure that we comply with regulations. So yeah, obviously we're mitigating risk by complying with regulations. But if you take a look at sustainability, I think this is a really good example. It started when you look at what environmental, social, and governance, or ESG efforts in most organizations, they start with compliance. Making sure that, whether it's a carrot or stick approach, making sure that you can report on not just the environmental side, but, how you're doing with all sorts of other parts of the organization, may be required by certain local or governmental regulations. But oftentimes then it becomes a way to show what a good organization you are, and therefore can help you win new customers. It can improve the customer or shareholder satisfaction with the organization. It can also increase employee retention. So sometimes regulations lead to innovation, and we need to be able to recognize that. On the other side, of course, there's the, hey, we're just trying to keep the darn lights on activities of mitigating risk within the IT, within the IT department. And so leaders are constantly facing, frankly, I hear this all the time from IT leaders: technical debt. What is technical debt? It is when you are unable to replace a key system because it's just either too complex, it's too vital to the organization, and therefore could cause too many disruptions, or 9 times out of 10, it's either going to take too long or be too expensive. And so the budget winds up getting allocated to other areas. And then, the technical debt just accumulates more and more and more and more. And this is an area where data storage really comes in, and we're going to drill into that even more in just a bit. But that can be a huge blocker, not just for innovation, but especially in creating more risk for the organization. Because as systems age and get more and more band-aids are put on the situation, the harder it is to actually do the surgery that's needed to really, fully restore the health of the IT infrastructure. The most obvious one, though, is data security. Ransomware attacks are only increasing. And this is just one aspect of data security, just like AI is just one aspect of new technical trends. But the key thing when it comes to data is we not only need to protect the front lines, and I'll be the first to admit, Pure Storage, we're not a security company, okay? But one of the things that we've been able to help a lot of our customers and the folks who use Pure Storage and depend on it with is data resiliency. And this is a trend that a lot of organizations are really looking at. We can all invest, and we should, in the best possible defenses, in our firewalls, in rules and regulations, and who can have access to systems, and all these different things. But at the end of the day, the hackers and the ransomware attackers are going to find loopholes. They are going to at least probably keep pace with most of our efforts. So what we want to do is make sure that our data is resilient as it can be, and that our systems can come back up online almost immediately, if not, immediately, right away. The last couple, or this next one, financial costs, that's evergreen. It's perennial within IT. We're always being asked to slash our budgets, to do more with less. And, lately, I think one of the areas where a lot of organizations have been shining a bright, audit spotlight that hits IT is cloud costs. There are a lot of reasons to move to public cloud, and we'll go through some of the benefits of that. But, one of the key things is that it can mount up. It seems like initial savings because there's not the big capital outlay that you would have if you purchased your infrastructure and put it into your data center. But it does add up over time. And so every organization is taking a look at ways that they can reduce their financial risk, especially when it comes to IT. And cloud costs are just one part of it. There's a whole array of different areas where IT can have a good financial impact. And the last one, sustainability. And again, this could go hand in glove with what we were talking about around regulations, but there is more and more spotlight being shown on as especially new infrastructure is being considered within IT. What is the environmental cost going to be on that? How much is it going to cost, and how much energy is it going to take? And therefore, what's the carbon footprint going to be? Not let alone the space footprint within your actual physical data center for these solutions. All these things come together and start realizing that, the more flexibility, the more agility that you have within your IT infrastructure, the better it's going to be to find a balance between the risks that you're trying to mitigate and the innovation that you're trying to do to really make a difference in your organization. So the reason that storage, it can be one of the biggest areas for improvement within your organization is because it really has been the laggard around agility, and has been a primary blocker of, creating technical debt, for instance. And we'll give you an example of that in a second. Well, why is that? Well, when you think about the tech stack, okay, computing we kind of solved for with virtualization. All right. So we don't necessarily have to, make sure that these 10 servers are dedicated directly to that one, application that we're running. With virtualization, we can move it around and it becomes much more fungible. Somewhat true with networking as well. But, and certainly in the application stack, especially with a lot of organizations moving to software as a service, extremely flexible and fungible. Storage, not so much, especially when it's on premise. And that really comes down to the architectures that legacy storage vendors have put into their systems. The long story short, they were just never made to be adaptable, changeable, fungible, whatever term you want to use for it. Rigid is the one that comes to mind for me. Obviously every storage system has some ability to at least add capacity. Where you start running into walls is, can you add performance? Can you add new features? Can you make sure that it's the latest and greatest generation without having to rebuy it? And why is that? Well, because it's frankly the business model for most of the legacy storage vendors, that what they want you to do is rebuy your storage over and over again. And maybe you'll get slight sort of kind of maybe upgrade every now and then, but it's not designed so that it will, smoothly work across all of your different data types. In fact, a lot of what legacy storage vendors and even some of the newer startups offering storage, they're focused on one particular problem. And then they purchase another company that helps them with another problem. And then maybe they built up a totally separate system that was designed for this other workload or with this set of features, because now it's enterprise versus what you wind up with is complexity. There was never a focus on how do we make things as simple as we possibly can for the users, you in IT, and especially for you IT leaders, to make sure that you can adopt a storage platform and know that it will grow with you and change as you need to change over time, because the only constant in IT, as we've already seen, is change. What this all leads to then is technical debt. If you cannot replace your storage system, and who can, every 2 to 3 years, you are going to be falling behind the technology curve. Performance is going to suffer. Users are going to be complaining. There are going to be new workloads that you cannot address. As workloads scale faster than you had anticipated, you're not going to be able to meet that demand. And guess what? Since the legacy storage vendors thought you had a crystal ball, and had you pre-buy 3 to 5 years worth of capacity and whatnot over on this system, and guess what? It's actually needed over on this workload over here. Yeah, that's just going to lead to more and more technical debt, and it's going to be a blocker toward your innovation. And more importantly, it's just going to keep introducing more and more risk into your IT stack. So again, what is needed here is agility. What IT needs is to make sure that every part of the technology stack can adapt to changes as they come through. And like we just said, storage has traditionally been anything but agile. If you can reduce that complexity and increase your flexibility, you're going to be able to power more innovation. And conversely, then still be able to tackle the risk element that we were talking about before. So what would really be perfect is one common platform that goes across your entire data estate. All right, all your different data needs, all the different workloads and data types, and who cares whether, this one needs to be super high performance and this one is, more like backup archive. It should still be one platform that allows a simplified management, a common user interface, so that you don't need a bunch of different specialists in each of these separate systems, with the trend toward generalists in IT and less specialization. Especially given that we know we're going to have to keep staffing up other specialized areas like AI model generators and folks along those lines. The more that we can keep the lights on and even innovate with folks who don't have to spend all their time just figuring out how the storage works and juggling all the balls to make sure it doesn't crash, that's going to be much more beneficial for you in the future. And then especially what do we keep saying is the biggest blocker aside from complexity to agility in storage? It's the fact that it can't expand and grow along with your needs. So if you have storage that is meant to be expandable, upgradable, so that, without either a financial or, a technical or a time limitation on that, that is going to give you the agility you need to be able to respond to business needs and innovate more for your organization. And then again, that is going to eliminate technical debt. And that means you can say yes to more of those innovation projects. Well, this is exactly what we have worked on here at Pure. What we have delivered is the Pure Data Storage Platform. And what this is the most consistent, modern, and reliable data storage platform out there. It starts with a software, underpinning, if you will, called Purity, our operating software. And that work combined with our flash storage is what provides the basic building blocks for all the different storage technologies that we have. And it means that you have one set of commands and, one interface into the system, regardless of whether you're looking at, block and file for these workloads or unstructured and object over here, and whether you want a scale up or a scale out or what, those are all choices that you can make if you need to. But what we deliver is going to work not only on-prem, but also in the cloud. And then, as I said, one management plane that works across all these. And as I said, also works within the public cloud, even for modern applications, container-based applications. So for the next generation, and as you are moving more and more of your application stack over to these different ones, now you have all the support that you need for that. And then finally, how you want to consume your storage is completely up to you. So with our Evergreen, which is both the underpinnings, if you will, of the upgradable architecture that we deliver in the platform, as well as the subscription that you would use to consume your storage. And we have subscriptions that even work if you want to do the traditional purchase and have it on site. And that subscription then provides for the investment protection and all of the feature upgrades, hardware upgrades, et cetera, that you need over time. Or you can consume it completely as a service through what we call our Evergreen One subscription. And that means that you have full flexibility, meeting your resources to your needs and never having to over provision or over purchase. What this delivers is outcomes for you. 50% lower total cost of ownership. We've seen up to 60% and more. It's incredibly space efficient, incredibly reliable, 10 to 30 times fewer service visits than with legacy storage. As I said, with this never obsolete, the ability to be able to upgrade your storage at any time. We have customers who first purchased products from us 10 years ago who have never replaced the array. They've simply been able to do modular upgrades over time so that it now runs exactly like one that they could have purchased yesterday. And that means that they have all the agility that they need without having to rebuy storage. Their investments are protected, etc. It also definitely delivers a lot of time savings to you. So that is obviously something that you're going to need both for risk and for innovation. It is absolutely backed up by the experts. Gartner has put us into the leaders quadrant for the last 10 years. And what this has meant is we've been able to not only deliver the right technology and the right way to consume it, but this has resulted in incredible customer satisfaction for those who use Pure. We have a Net Promoter Score, NPS, which is 2 to 3 times that of any other storage vendor. All told, what we're going to be able to deliver to you is the ability to both mitigate your risk and make sure that you can innovate for the organization. How do you get started? How do you find more information? Use the QR code on your screen. We'll also be following up with each of you. If we didn't get to cover any issues that you might have or questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'll reach out back to you. Thank you so much for your time today, and back to the rest of the MegaCast.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. We've got a poll up here for you all. If you are looking for some additional information from Pure Storage and their solution and you like what you saw there, don't hesitate. If you want a data sheet, if you want pricing details, if you want a personal demo, let them know and they'll be reaching out after today's MegaCast with all that information that you're requesting. And many of you put in some incredible questions today. We won't have a ton of time for a live Q&A here with Kevin, but he is here and going to stick around a little bit for some chat and respond to you directly. So do look for that. And of course, all of those questions will be answered and followed up upon by the Pure Storage team in the next couple of days. And if you want to learn more right away, click out on the Handouts tab. If you haven't checked that out yet, each presenting team has a handout there packed full of great information. So this one here from Pure Storage is an analyst report, the agility and the future of the all-flash data center. So if you're interested in that, definitely grab it now. And that'll be a great way to follow up on the conversation here today with Kevin. Now, I do have a little bit of excitement for you all. Not that Kevin wasn't exciting enough. I'm sure you're buzzing, but we do have some prizes to give away. So I have the first of 4 $300 Amazon gift cards to give out. A quick reminder that you must be present at the webinar to win. And our very first lucky winner here today is Jerry Grazik from Texas. So congratulations, Jerry. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after the webinar. And do not forget that there are still 3 more gift cards and 3 Kindle Scribes up for grabs. So stick around. And we also have those gift cards for the best questions. So keep sending in thoughtful and insightful questions as our presenting teams continue on in today's MegaCast. Okay, folks. Next up in today's star-studded lineup is the team from Nutanix and specifically Jeff Kelly, the Senior Product Marketing Manager over at Nutanix. Keep those questions coming in for Jeff because I'll be joining him on camera for some Q&A after the presentation. And with that, Jeff, the floor is all yours. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here. As mentioned, my name's Jeff Kelly. I run marketing for Nutanix Database Service at Nutanix. Today we're going to talk about making databases a first-class citizen of your application stack. So we're going to start with an analogy. I've been thinking about this topic for a long time, years in fact, that I've been in this business, thinking about how databases play a role in application development. And I've been thinking about ways to tell the story that resonate. And I've come across an analogy here that I think might work. I guess you'll be the judge. But I want you to picture your favorite salad bar. And what makes a salad bar great? What makes it your favorite salad bar? And there's a few things that come to mind. First is choice. Lots of options at your favorite salad bar. Different types of lettuce and vegetables and cheese and all sorts of things that you can pick and put together in any combination you like. And number two, quality. Obviously, all these items have to be very high quality in order for it to be a great salad. And third is self-service. You're able to put this together yourself. You build your own salad. You don't have to wait for somebody else to do it for you. And you can make it exactly how you want it. Now imagine, however, if one of the key ingredients was not available. Let's say the salad dressing was not part of the salad bar. And in fact, you had to go and you went and you talked to the proprietor, and they said, oh yeah, for the salad dressing, you have to go order that from a waiter. And it'll take another 20 or 30 minutes. And by the way, there's only two choices, ranch and Italian. And we'll get it to you in 20, 30 minutes. And yeah, you just sit there and wait. And it's not the highest quality, but it's the best we can do. Now, you wouldn't be too happy with that. That would probably cause you to be a little frustrated. You'd be wasting some time waiting for that salad dressing, and you might not come back, or if you did come back to that salad bar, you might bring your own salad dressing the next time. Now, if you will, imagine if that wasn't a salad bar, but in fact was a platform for your developers. Now, what makes a good developer platform? Well, one is choice. Developers need access to a whole host of different services that they need to build their applications, and a good platform should provide that choice. Could CI/CD pipeline tools, monitoring tools, security, etc. Quality, obviously, you want those tools to be high quality. You don't want low quality tools. That's not going to be a very good choice if you're building mission critical applications. And finally, self-service. Developers want to be able to access these services and build their applications on their own without having to go through another department, another group, because speed is the name of the game. Now imagine if one of those key services was not available, and like our salad dressing, required the developer to go off and make a request for that service. Now we're talking about databases. So imagine you're a developer, you're building your application, you're using this internal development platform that your platform engineering team has created, and you've got all the elements of your application, but for the database, you've got to go request it from another organization, maybe DBAs, IT. You've got to wait days or weeks or maybe months for that database to show up. And by the way, you only get a couple different options. You don't get to pick the database that you think is best for your application or your workload. That's going to lead to wasted time, some frustration. And in the future, you may bring your own database. You may start using an open source database on your own. You maybe use a cloud database. And obviously, that's going to add some complexity to the whole situation, as well as some security risks. So that's how I think about the role of the database when it comes to your internal development platform. And when you think about developers and databases, they don't always kind of go together. In fact, there's kind of been an antagonistic relationship a little bit over the years between developers and databases. Developers traditionally don't like to think about databases too much. They just want one that works. But we're seeing that shift a bit. In the past, the first thing that a developer might pick when they're building a new application is the development language, or maybe the cloud. But we're increasingly seeing the database being the first element of the application stack that they're selecting. I came across an article from Matt Acey in InfoWorld that I just wanted to bring your attention to. You should definitely go read it. It's from back in February, where he talks about why developers should put the database first. And he argues that it's the most important part of the application stack. And that was music to my ears, because I've been saying this for years, and I'm glad to see people are starting to believe that. Kelsey Hightower, who's a very influential developer, he also talks about the importance of data when it comes to building applications. And Kyle Matthews, again, another influential developer, talks about shifting to database first when prototyping new applications. So this is really a change of pace change of operations for developers, that the database is now really front and center. And I think this is a good thing, because if you think about the applications that we use today, so many of them are data focused, data intensive. The applications that we use as consumers, to the ones that are personalized, certainly new AI based applications, all of that in the background, all of that, those rich recommendations and analytics comes from data. And you need a solid database and data first approach to building applications to make that work. So I'm glad to see this starting to change. Now, the challenge is, of course, that databases and application development don't naturally kind of fit together. It's a little bit like oil and water for a few different reasons. When you think about application development, you think about speed of deployment, speed of time to market, excuse me. And when you think of databases, actually that's kind of the opposite of what you think in terms of deployment time. Databases can be very time consuming to configure and deploy and get into the hands of developers. In terms of making services available to developers, platform teams want to use infrastructure as code. Again, databases are not really built to fit into that model. Then you've got things like version control and rollback and state. And again, for applications, that's fairly straightforward. For databases, it gets a lot trickier because you're dealing with data, which is a much more complex, lot more variables in play. And databases just weren't built or developed with this idea of integrating with rapid software development when they were originally developed. So there really is this friction, and that's part of the reason I think if you talk to developers, that databases have been, again, as I said, there's been a little bit of an antagonistic relationship between databases and developers because they don't fit really seamlessly into the development process. There's a lot of challenges with making them work together. And that's a problem that we think we really need to solve. So let's kind of dig in a little bit more detail about what it looks like today, or traditionally, I should say, how traditionally a developer gets a database. And I will say, when we talk to customers here at Nutanix, while many of our customers are in fact have adopted modern software development practices, they are still, many of them, managing databases like it's 2003. And by that I mean manually. And so typically what happens is, there's a developer, they're building a new application, or maybe it's an existing application and they want to build a new feature that's data driven, and they need a database to support that feature. And so they'll make a request for a new database, whether they need to provision a brand new database, maybe they'll need a clone database to kind of test against for test dev purposes, whatever it is, they make the request, oftentimes through some kind of ticketing system. But then it kicks off a process that's often manual and linear, and that takes time. So often the database team will be the first team to get involved. They'll take the request, okay, they want a SQL Server version XYZ, and here are the configurations they're looking for, and they'll kind of take that first step and start building the database. From there, then they might hand it off to the infrastructure team. Okay, well, we need to deploy this on some hardware. What's the right hardware? Where are we gonna deploy it? Is this gonna be in the cloud? Is this gonna be on-prem somewhere? Again, a manual linear process. And then it's handed off to the storage team. Of course, you're dealing with data. You've got to make sure the storage is configured properly. Once that's completed, now it's time to hand it off to the networking team, and then ultimately off to the backup team, and so on and so forth. And eventually, the operation is completed and the developer gets access to that database. Unfortunately, that is going to take quite a bit of time. Now imagine there are some problems along the way. This is if everything goes smoothly. You're talking days, sometimes weeks. Imagine if there's an issue. Maybe the database team, maybe they have a backlog and they don't have time to get to your request right away. So now you're talking, extending the time even further. Or maybe the storage team is dealing with some kind of crisis of their own. And again, your request is not top of mind. Or the networking team, again, is dealing with some requests from C-level executives that they've got to deal with. So this has a few different impacts on developers. Of course, it's at least an unpredictable experience. Sometimes it's going to take days for them to get a database, other times weeks, sometimes months. Obviously, that's not an ideal workflow. It's going to lower your business agility due to friction and complexity. And I think most importantly for the business, it's going to lengthen time to market for new products and services. I mean, that's what developers are hired for, to build digital experiences, digital products. to get in the hands of your customers, to do business, drive revenue. And the longer it takes to get those applications, those products, and those services out to market, the longer it takes for that revenue to start rolling in. So time is money, as they say. Now, how should developers get a database? In kind of this modern world where we think about treating databases as a first-class citizen, it's all about automation and making database services a part of your platform. So again, let's go through that workflow. A developer requests a database. If you're using automation, that linear manual process I talked about can be handled by one team that can use a console, use a single operating model to manage all the different facets of getting that database up and running and in the hands of the developer in a much shorter period of time. Even better than that, if you can integrate the ability for the developer to request and provision a database themselves in a self-service kind of way, and bypass that team altogether, that's even better. You're going to save even more time. And frankly, that gives the team of DBAs and IT themselves time back to work on other things. Because I think one of the things that, this particular webinar, we're talking about the developer experience, but I don't want to forget DBAs and IT who are often completely overwhelmed by the sheer number of databases that are being asked to manage. And if they're trying to do that manually, and you think about, every company these days is trying to become a digital company, digital first company. That means databases are proliferating everywhere. And these DBAs and IT are drowning. And the ones I talk to are pretty much spending their days running from fire to fire. So if you can automate some of these things and provide self-service for developers, that's also a really great thing for DBAs and IT, because now they can focus on higher value things like making sure the database architecture is optimized, make sure performance is where it needs to be, those kinds of things, which brings higher value to the organization and frankly brings higher value to their role. And so, but getting back to the developer, this is going to provide them with a cloud-like self-service model with a predictable experience. You're empowering those developers without impacting the DBAs or IT, as we just talked about. Importantly, it needs to integrate with your existing processes through APIs, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. And the most important thing ultimately is it's going to result in faster time to market for your products and services, which we talked about a moment ago is critical, and really what the name of the game is: speed. So my argument to platform engineering teams, to DevOps teams, is to make databases a first-class citizens of those internal developer platforms you're building. We talked earlier with my my genius salad bar analogy. Well, I'll let you be the judge if it's a great analogy or not. But you've got different services that are made available: CI/CD pipelines, containers, monitoring, etc. We really need to make sure that databases are a first-class citizen, or one of those services that are made available to developers in that self-service way, so that they can do their jobs and get back to building and shipping code instead of fiddling with databases, waiting for databases to get deployed, or maybe even doing some shadow IT, deploying their own databases because they don't want to wait. There's a lot of implications here, but the bottom line is we think it's really important to make databases a first-class citizen of your platform. Which leads us to Nutanix and how we approach the challenge. So Nutanix Database Service, if you're unfamiliar with it, is our database service. It's a hybrid multi-cloud database service that supports the 5 most popular databases. And it really has a couple different elements. Its number one, I think, value proposition is it helps integrate databases and database management into the software development process. And we'll get into how it does that in a second. It automates a lot of the day-to-day administration, things like provisioning, cloning, patching, backup, and recovery, which is going to be a huge help to DBAs and IT. And it all runs on Nutanix cloud infrastructure, which is optimized for database performance, scalability. And ultimately, for the conversation we're having here today, the important part that we're going to talk about in a moment is its integration with tools that platform engineering teams and developers use on a day-to-day basis to build their platforms, to build their applications. Nutanix Database Service integrates with those like Kubernetes, Ansible, and Terraform to make it a seamless process from provisioning your database, cloning for test and dev purposes, upgrading, etc. And so this is the slide I really want to spend most of our time thinking about how NDB, Nutanix Database Service, enables database as code and makes databases a seamless part of the software development lifecycle. So number one, I think the most important thing to think about is how NDB enables platforms and ops teams to treat databases as code. And we do this through integrations with Terraform and Ansible. So there's a few areas there that we can get into around some of the benefits there. I think from a Terraform perspective, automated provisioning is one key part of it. You can use Terraform to define your desired state of your database instances, and you can include specifications for database size, versions, configurations, things like that. And you define these parameters in Terraform scripts. And so your database can be provisioned and managed easily, just like any other piece of infrastructure. It can also support things like version control and other really important day one and day two tasks. Ansible is really great when it comes to configuration management and things like continuous deployment. And so what I really want you to take away from this is that NDB, through these integrations, enables platform teams to treat databases code just as they would treat any other service, so that it makes it really simple and it fits into your workflow and it fits into the developer workflow, so they can use databases like they would use any other service. Now, in terms of the actual developer experience, another important part is that NDB lets developers deploy databases with code through our Kubernetes operator, so they can, with a few lines of code, can request and provision a database on their own without having to go through DBAs or IT. And in the background, NDB does all that provisioning work in an automated way. And so it fits much more seamlessly in with their software development lifecycle and hopefully speeds time to market. And so this is really kind of the core of what we think about when we talk about making databases a seamless part of application development. Is treating databases as code, just as you would any other service that developers need to build their applications. Now, another important component, of course, is open source databases. So developers today want to use the best database for the job. So there's certainly plenty of commercial databases still running out there, but developers increasingly want to use open source databases like Postgres and Mongo. And these databases are great, but when you're using open source databases, if you're using the open source community versions, obviously they don't come with things like support, and you've got to do a lot of the configuration yourself. With NDB, we simplify a lot of that, provisioning, patching, cloning, just like we do with the commercial databases, we can do with the open source databases, and support is included with your NDB license. So we make open source databases enterprise ready so developers can use the database that they think is best for their application. I talked a little bit about simplifying database administration. This is where NDB is a huge help to DBAs and IT teams. NDB can help automate provisioning while still giving DBAs and IT control over the actual database images and the database configurations they make available to IT. You can kind of think of it like, if we go, well, our salad bar analogy, let's go to a restaurant analogy. It's sort of like DBAs and IT can decide what's on the menu, which databases to put on offer that developers can then choose from and deploy themselves in a self-service way. So there's still control. So it's not completely the Wild West where the developer can pick any database in the whole wide world. You still have control over which databases are made available, while developers can then deploy them in a self-service way. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. Other things like provisioning single instance, high availability clusters with best practices is supported. Creating clones in minutes, which is really important for test dev. And again, freeing up DBAs and IT to work on higher value activities, because now they can offload some of the kind of the tedious day-to-day work to NDB. NDB can also help improve your database security posture. You can schedule and automate database patching. We've got role-based access control, so you can ensure only approved people are accessing the database, and that's important for compliance. We also integrate with other third-party tools, data masking, data encryption tools, things like that. so you can build out the most robust database platform that you need for your particular needs. Backup and recovery, also very important. This kind of, we talked about version control a little bit with NDB Time Machine. It's very easy to go back to a certain point in time with for your database if there's any kind of issue with a corruption of the data or anything like that. So it really simplifies backup and recovery with these integrated snapshots with our Time Machine. We've got tiered backups to storage optimized Nutanix clusters. And the whole idea is to enable you to restore your databases to a specific point in time to meet your RTO and RPO objectives. And finally, NDB runs on Nutanix Cloud, on the Nutanix Cloud platform on our modern hybrid multi-cloud infrastructure, which enables you to run your databases and manage them across on-premises, private clouds, private data centers, as well as public clouds. Simplifies cluster management. We've got something called Optimized Database Platform that enables you to optimize performance with compute-only and storage-only nodes based on your needs. And of course, things like high availability built into the platform with self-healing infrastructure. So in the end, if we think about databases and applications, application development being oil and water, I think with NDB, we kind of changed that equation a little bit. And again, if you'll indulge me, kind of going back to our salad analogy, I think in the end, we help them blend more seamlessly. And hopefully at the end, you have a lovely salad bar experience. Just, you know, in all seriousness, makes it much, much easier for your developers to get access to databases, to do what they need to do. It helps DBAs and IT manage the day-to-day responsibilities they have around databases in a much easier way. And the platform itself ensures that you're getting the performance and the scalability that you need. And with that, I'd love to invite you to give Nutanix Database Service a try. You can take a test drive. You can just visit the link on the screen and very easily with a few clicks, take it for a test drive and see for yourself how it works. And I thank everyone for your time today.
All right, Jeff, that's fantastic. I vote yes in favor of this salad bar analogy. I really like it. I was truly like, where else could I apply this in life? But I'm gonna let you keep it. It's a good one. But I'll reference you if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Are you down for a little bit of Q&A from the audience here? We had some questions come in throughout the presentation.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, this one should be quick and easy. First one here is from Phil. He's asking, what database engines does Nutanix database support?
Yes, good question. I did kind of glide over that a little bit. So Nutanix Database Service supports essentially the 5 most popular databases in the enterprise. If you go to any of the database rankings, you'll see the top 5 generally are SQL Server, Oracle Database, MySQL, PostgreSQL, and MongoDB. And those are the 5 databases that Nutanix Database Service supports. So you can manage all of those databases with a single platform, NDB, and make them available to developers and simplify the management experience across all those different engines for DBAs and IT.
Great. Next question here. This is, I think you touched on it, but how can you explain why version control is challenging for databases? What should I be looking out for?
Yeah, I think the thing with version control specifically, when you think about version control with applications, version control systems are primarily designed to handle code, so like source code written in programming languages, whereas databases deal with data, and there's some fundamental differences there between code and data. Code is generally pretty static, where data changes a lot. So that just by its very nature, data and databases are much more challenging to deal with from a version control perspective. And so if you can make databases, if you can integrate with tools like Ansible, for example, it can make it much easier to handle version control and align that to your application version control policies and procedures. Because it is very important, of course, it's important part of the software development process. But it is a very tricky thing.
Okay. But you've got the tools to deal with it.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, one final question because I think we're about at time here, but this one looks good. What role do platform engineering teams play in making databases accessible to developers to support modern application development?
Yeah, good question. I mean, platform engineering is sort of an emerging discipline. Goes by a few different names, but essentially, the idea, it's sort of a reaction to the whole DevOps model where DevOps came about because the old way of building applications was, application developers would build an app, and then when it came time to actually move that into production, they would quote unquote throw it over the wall to operations teams and say, hey, now it's your problem. You figure out how to run it. And so DevOps came around and said, all right, we're going to build these small teams that are responsible for the whole application lifecycle, from building it to running it. That way there's some accountability. And that's great, but then each team was kind of having to reinvent the wheel. They were building all the same structures to support the application over and over again. And so platform engineering, the concept here is to build a single platform that has just the building blocks that all your applications are going to need, so that those DevOps teams don't have to rebuild them for each application they're building. And so platform engineering team really is to build, their goal, their job in life is to serve their customers being developers and DevOps teams, with a self-service platform that has reusable services that they need to do their jobs, to make it as easy as possible and to access these services so they can build applications, write and ship code quickly. And so that's really what platform engineering is all about. As I said, it's an emerging discipline. Where they sit in the organization is kind of still up in the air. I think of platform engineering as sort of sitting between, it's kind of a layer between IT and DBAs and developers and DevOps teams. They're kind of like a layer where you've got IT and DBAs that, they focus on the day-to-day management of the databases, making sure they're running properly, the performance is there. And the platform engineering kind of sits a layer above that. Kind of how do we make all that great stuff that DBAs and IT are doing, make it accessible to our developers? That's the job of the platform engineering team.
Okay, nice, great answer. Thank you for clarifying that. And I'm sure many in their organizations are looking at, where does this fit into how we're building and growing and managing all of this? All right. With that, I'm gonna let you go, Jeff. But one final, call to action or any final words you want to leave with everyone here in the audience today.
Well, again, I encourage everybody to check out Nutanix Database Service, take a test drive, and reach out to us if you have any questions. We love talking databases and application development, and we'd love to help your organization.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Too much fun here on the MegaCast already. Thank you all for being interactive and sending in great questions. If your question was not answered in the Q&A just now, do not worry. The team at Nutanix will reach out after the webinar and make sure they send over any information that you were hoping to have answered here in the Q&A. There's also a poll up if you have not yet noticed, and there you can also request any additional information from Nutanix about their solution. Again, this is kind of your wish list, your easy button. Just plunk in whatever it is that you are looking for here, and you'll get it handed over right after the MegaCast today. And if you want to learn more right away, click into the Handouts tab and go check out the Real Organizations, Real Database Challenges case study. You can learn how businesses and associations have leveraged Nutanix to simplify and save on their database operations. Okay, well, let's keep the show on the road. I've got a couple more prizes here to give out. Reminder, you must be live, present, and lucky to win. And our next lucky prize winners here on the MegaCast are, first and foremost, for a $300 Amazon gift card, Sandeep Pangala from California. And our Kindle Scribe, the first of three, is going out to Matthew Cobb from Tennessee. So huge congrats, Sandeep and Matthew. As always, we'll be in touch about claiming your prize after today's webinar. And again, do not forget, you still have some chances to win and those best question gift cards from each session. So keep those questions coming in. And we'll go to our next presenter now. We have got from the incredible crew at Couchbase, Tyler Mitchell waiting in the wings here, and he'll be talking about how to get future ready. I'm so pleased to introduce you, Tyler. So again, Tyler Mitchell, he's the Senior Product Marketing Manager at Couchbase. And with that, Tyler, are you ready to take things away here?
Good, thank you very much. Yeah, so as part of kind of an ongoing series of items that we're talking about lately, we want to talk about the concept of getting your organization and your developer experience lined up so that you're ready for the next big wave of changes that are coming and that we're already seeing happening in our customer base, but also just in the industry in general. So I'm going to talk a little more abstractly about some concepts that we just want to encourage you to consider as you're looking at your database strategies for the next 5-10 years, and particularly how that applies to AI innovation. Just got 3 short sections in our presentation here, and starting with why the cloud. You might wonder why I'm dropping back to talking about cloud when I've just been talking about AI. But it's essential for us to see that there are some very serious parallels or very interesting parallels between cloud adoption and AI adoption, although we're admittedly early in the AI adoption kind of wave of things, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But on the cloud side, we had a lot of kind of speculation about the cloud, say 15 years ago. Where is it going? What are people going to do? People would dabble in it. And then all of a sudden, seems like overnight, everybody had to have a very clear cloud strategy. And many architectures for your applications were built on cloud dependencies. And we're in a very similar situation now around the AI side. But it's important to look back and go, here are some of the kind of core reasons that companies were folding in cloud strategies into their enterprise. Now, this is from Harvard Business Review from a couple of years ago, but I think the results are pretty much the same these days. That's data consolidation, it increased security. Even back then, they were talking about AI-enabled analytics in the cloud, consolidating tools and processes, et cetera, all of these things to bring things together, make them closer and tighter and cleaner and more secure. And really early in the cloud boom, the cloud adoption boom, the users really weren't sure how far they'd be able to go with these. And we've seen lots of success over the past decade of really adopting and making best practices around cloud adoption. But at the end of the day, what we've summarized and what our customers articulate to us are these kind of core values of that they look for in cloud databases. So take away this as kind of your checklist card for when you are looking for a cloud database option, that you make sure that you have some of these options. Most of these, if you remove any one of these in particular, you'll have certain challenges. I don't go into it in detail here, but you'll have certain challenges that you have to address. The performance and scalability is one of those big things that was pitched early on in the cloud adoption. And then as more globally available cloud resources came online, we started getting into more about the global high availability concepts. And we got into more of the multi-cluster, multi-region concepts. And eventually into these mobile synchronizations and having kind of these edge devices connecting to databases. So all of these things are core to your strategy. Whether you acknowledge them or not, you will have to come back to addressing some of these. And then we touch on the JSON-powered flexibility as well in our presentations and documentation. It's core central feature of our database. And we don't go into it too much in detail in this presentation, but it's worth looking at our other presentations and online assets to see why that is the case. So that's switching over to a little bit about the challenges that people have building out these kinds of architectures, and then we'll transition into how that looks for AI. But this is a typical slide, a slide that shows a typical architecture and really exemplifies what data sprawl and data management challenges look like today. You might have at the bottom your infrastructure layers. They could be on-prem or cloud resources. And those, we talked about actually in the last presentation as well, talked about the challenges of managing those layers. And it doesn't really matter if some of those are managed fully by a vendor or self-managed, because when you get up to that next level where you have all these different kinds of ways of accessing your data, each of those comes with its own complexity and its own vendor and its own kind of managed, self-managed or fully managed architectures, and increases kind of at a exponential rate the complexity of your architecture. So for each one of these items, you might not have all of these types of services in the center row here in your architecture yet, but you will, and your users will appreciate it when you do have those. And then just at the top, you've got, say, a couple dozen different applications, and then each of those needs a set of several of these kinds of data access services down below. And you add in mobile and edge applications, and they need access to a few other features and gateways to features. And it makes a very complex, kind of messy spaghetti monster mess of interconnected dependencies and complexities. And this is maybe what it might look like in kind of real world with some logos on here, just to give you an idea of kind of the breadth of complexity that can be married from multiple types of service providers. Won't go into detail in the text on this slide, except to say that that bottom right cost arrow is important. When you're adopting any new technology from any different vendor or from any different open source project for that matter, you have support costs, operational training, integration, licensing, and infrastructure challenges that increase costs. So I should back up and say Couchbase is used by more than 30% of the Fortune 100 enterprises, and specifically our cloud-based offering. And predominantly, we are adopted for that cost benefit, that cost reduction. So as they aggregate their services together under our umbrella. But continuing our story about our complexity of data architectures, you see all these different vendors, different products. Some are on cloud, some are not. And then you add in the complexities of having these deployed in multiple geographic locations. So this is talking about our cloud service called Capella, and it's supported in over 70 regions across these three clouds. You can now multiply the complexity of having multiple services and then having them multiplied in multiple places around the world, and also ensuring that you have active data centers in different locations, in different geographic locations as well. And then you're adding in, say, mobile devices that are connected for your users at their endpoints. And the complexity is just exponential across the kind of these last four slides, as you can see. If you have to change one service, we could probably actually just go back and hypothesize this. If you had to change out one service from this diagram, it's going to affect multiple applications, from web applications to mobile applications, and you'll have to adjust things across multiple cloud environments, across multiple regions, and ensure that they're all synchronized together. So this is a summary of what we recommend as a platform for modern applications. And this really reflects the way we've designed our Capella service, which is a database as a service available on the public cloud. You can see on the bottom left, or you can manage it yourself on-prem or in your own public cloud environments. But you'll see we've taken care of the bottom layer of the infrastructure layer. We have the performance foundation on top of that. Again, any of these items on that performance foundation line, if you remove any one of those, you're going to have your own issues. And I should say our Magma storage there is the name for our engine for optimized storage. But if you talk about removing ACID transactions or not having geo-replicated and synchronization for your workloads, you'll have other issues that you have to deal with that are not nice. And then at the top, we've got the different kinds of services. All of these are bundled up into one product offering where you put your data in and you get your data back out using the different kinds of service offerings and data access methods that we have available. And so it's designed to be a much cleaner architecture, and you should be able to do this with the cloud database platform that you choose. So now let's switch over to, I'll keep pressing the arrow key. switch over to some of the complexities of building AI on top of this infrastructure as well. So we won't go into too much detail, but we know the new application design requirements that incorporate AI are just as important and serious as our earlier applications built on the cloud. Everything must be mobile and responsive. And with AI brought into the mix, it should be contextually aware. So it needs to know who you are, where you are, what you need. Real-time information folded into an AI application is going to be expected. And then there's just that ability to be hyper-personalized that really is more of that contextually aware concept that people want the system or the application to understand who they are and what their needs are. And there's going to be a whole bunch of innovation for kind of use cases we haven't even thought of yet, of course. Here's just 4 use cases. In general use cases, we talk a lot about using Gen AI to power chatbots and kind of interactive applications. And we've just launched, actually yesterday, we had a blog post go up talking about how to search our documentation using conversational AI. And that's really exciting. But that's just the beginning. AI-powered chatbots is probably now yesterday's news in a way. Other products and companies and applications are going to be using AI for generating content. We've seen that already in a lot of marketing and copywriting and a lot of discussion, even people writing books, etc. Content generation, big one. But really where we think that it starts to get really interesting is when we get into what we call semantic/hybrid search. And I'll show you an example of that in a few minutes. But it's not just using AI's capabilities to mine some data and give you an answer, but using AI alongside the best of breed of other types of kind of querying and analytical data access approaches can give you a way more powerful and performant experience. You've probably all seen the chatbots where you type a thing and you have to wait a few seconds for an answer. Well, with hybrid search, we're flipping that kind of upside down, saying, look, use the best and fastest capabilities of your systems and add in AI as well and get a more contextually aware answer. And then the kind of 4th use case here, and there's many other use cases that we've seen and have been discussing, but is the more complex data analytical side of things. So the classifications, predictive analytics, things like that. So we also believe like vector search is one AI component that is worth looking up if you're not already familiar with vector search or vector embeddings or generative AI in general. Recommend you look up those buzzwords and dive in a bit. It doesn't take a lot to kind of get that under your belt. But we see that vector search along with AI is one of those things that's is going to be available across the board, no matter what you're doing. And as long as you've got a foundation underneath that can support the real-time aspects of it, the in-memory speed, etc., you're going to be good to go. But don't forget about the mobile and edge use cases, because those are going to be paramount for your user experience as well. From anything from field teams needing predictive maintenance to being able to take pictures of things or having customer support get passed through to the right levels, you need mobile integration as well. These here are 2 issues that kind of came up as well in the cloud boom, but are increasingly important in the AI boom here as well. The sharing of proprietary and sensitive data. You can't ignore the fact that if you're using third-party services, that you have some kind of security assessment required. And we use vector search and the RAG techniques to help make sure that you're not passing data around unnecessarily. And also, we know in the AI sphere, we get this idea of hallucinations, because if you don't have data that's relevant to your organization, your answers and your customer experience is going to be pretty poor. So you want to make sure that you can actually develop a steadfast AI offering that knows your information, that makes sure that it's correct before it gives answers back to its users. So keep that on your list of issues. But overall, and kind of to summarize, preparing applications for AI shows some of these architectural weaknesses that we've just been discussing. We have opinions on all of this, and we have a performant capability to show this in action. And I'll leave you a link at the end. But really, there's diverse sets of data that are going into our AI applications, and we got to ensure that they're not complex and tied in a complex way to your existing infrastructure. And the top bar on this one, the idea that we're kind of in the timeline of AI adoption and what we call AI application modernization. It's really, we're just enhancing existing applications right now. I should say we, as in the global marketplace, and application developers are just learning the technology, tweaking some existing apps to make some new features available. And then we get into what's going to be very soon and already started creating new applications that can provide functionality that never existed before. And this is going to be the game-changing capabilities that we'll be talking about a year from now, about amazing companies doing really great things. But it is a huge problem. We could say it's Y2K sized for those of you that were around in Y2K timing. You'll get that reference, but it's a problem for everyone, and everyone's going to be pushed to create the new applications and not just keep enhancing older ones. And it's everyone everywhere. But the one point I do want to point out here is the idea of kind of shifting focus. We have seen that there's a real push for multi-purpose databases to accommodate AI designs. And when we say multi-purpose, we mean databases that support those multiple types of services at multiple levels, like we've been showing in some of these slides, and I'll show you some more in a minute. But it's really just saying, oh, here's a collection of tools to solve a problem is not nearly as effective as having a coordinated, collated, and integrated set of tooling and data access approaches available. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. Here's an example of what we're calling a hybrid search. So it's an exciting opportunity because we can go down this list and see the different kinds of queries, in this case, or search capabilities or database analytics, whether it's looking for numeric ranges or geospatial information, or looking at trying to find fuzzy matching text terms. Once you add semantic and vector capabilities in, you can start to do a little bit more. So maybe previously you could, search for prices and locations and things, but now we can actually show a photograph. We can actually now describe a little more textually and get context, and then also add in the other database capabilities that we're used to using to get a better result for your user and a faster result than just, say, trying to throw it all at the AI to figure it all out. If anyone's used ChatGPT to try to get a real nice numeric answer, it can be really challenging. And vector search needs to be working alongside regular database technology, and it needs to have your corporate information, like your real vetted information, handy as well, so that it can proof check itself. And that's what we'll walk through here in the next few slides. It's just showing, if you jumped into a public AI chatbot today and asked a question, you'll get a fairly generic answer back. You won't necessarily be able to proof check it or anything like that, but it's an answer that might be of interest to you. All of the detail on here isn't quite as important as just to show you the complexity that goes behind the scenes in building some of AI applications, and how having some integration with your data platform already will be very important for you so it doesn't get unwieldy. But in this case, just wanted to walk you through a general RAG application and what this looks like. The idea that when you're loading, in our case, loading JSON documents into your database, it goes out to what's called an embedding model, gets a little piece of data to help it get indexed into our search service at the end of the day. So that's like data going into our database, into our users' databases, is getting indexed on the fly with what we call the text of the document, and then also the vector embedding information that the AI knows what to do with. And then kind of at another level, we get a search request from a user, and it goes and gets some vector embedding information from a large language model, and then sends that request over to our search service. And the search service can actually do its own nearest neighbor analysis to find documents in that database that are similar to the question that the user had. And then ultimately it can be sent over again to another LLM to help collate and create a readable human response with accurate data from your own search, from your own data set and your own data service in this architecture. So looks a little more complex than it really is. We're talking about indexing data and then being able to find matches that are contextually similar to each other. And so we take this diagram here and we just add on our top left side here, AI model execution. Once you add that in, if you don't already have these services all lined up and integrated together, then you're going to have more than just one black straight line coming down to these. You're going to have that spaghetti monster again, because you added in the AI model execution framework, and it has to understand all of your services to really be effective. So that's why we have integration at every level. We won't go into detail here, but I wanted to show you there are AI related challenges for each of these things, or integration points for each of these services that we're offering here. Ultimately, it comes down to performance and accuracy, as long as you have tight integration with your database platform. And to summarize it all up, again, this building blocks on top of each other. At the bottom, we've got an enterprise grade capabilities. In our case, it's a multi-model in-memory database with mobile connectivity. And then you go up to kind of the modern application implications of having this database platform. And we have a DBaaS offering and an on-prem offering. And we have the applications that need back-end synchronization kind of taken care of for them. A lot of people write their own synchronization applications, and it's very hard. And we've got over a couple decades now of experience, I think, in that space. And then the generative and predictive applications get a little more complex, but that's where we're rolling in our AI capabilities, and then edge integration with machine learning and AI at the edge on mobile devices, on IoT environments, etc. So this is kind of our vision for where real-time AI gets implemented, and you can't really take much out of this without having the structural challenge. So whether it's our system or another one, please make this your checklist of what capabilities you're going to need going forward. So that's a summary of our kind of our setup. I just wanted to leave this slide with you as a takeaway, that there are aspects to database platforms that we've implemented from day one, which is the in-memory and integrated caching, and we've continued to add those performance foundation assets to it, and are now at the point where AI integration will just become an additional capability that's enabled within our system, instead of trying to figure out how it has to integrate with a whole bunch of external systems, etc. So check out our free trial. There's no credit card required or anything like that. Just go have a look at it. Our DBaaS called Capella. And I guess at that point, yep, that's the last slide. So thanks for your time, and look forward to any questions.
Awesome. Great job. Thank you, Tyler. And thanks for sharing that. And definitely you got quite a number of questions that came in here. So we'll try to address as many as possible. I know this QR is great. We can hop back to it after if we need to, but I'm just going to throw up a poll here. So if any of you are intrigued and wanting some more information about the Couchbase solution, please feel free to just give them a sense of what you're looking for. Data sheets, white papers, pricing details. And with that, Tyler, are you ready to jump into some Q&A?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So first question here, it's a bit around pricing. They're saying, isn't it going to be more expensive to use a huge product instead of, say, multiple smaller open source pieces?
Yeah, it's a good question. The idea that open source will be your free product for you, everyone that's going to investigate open source versus enterprise proprietary commercial solutions, and understands this problem already. Sometimes one-on-one, you can do some comparative analysis and find pricing works out in a comparable way. But really, when you're talking about this architectural spaghetti monster scenario, where really you're really lost in a lot of weeds. You've got a lot of technical debt that you have to kind of build into your or address in your applications. There's a lot of training, and different platforms require different hardware and different systems. It's much more complex than most people realize to keep those things running smoothly together. And when there is a transformative shift, kind of like we saw to the cloud, well, to AI, it's not going to be a price competitive option for you. You're going to need more staff, and we've got brilliant use cases on our website that talk about how we are able to decrease the number of nodes, for example, that are needed on a cloud environment by half just by moving to our platform. So that's real costs, not just in staff time, which we usually talk about when you're comparing to open source technology, but not just in staff time, but also in actual cloud resources and hardware resources. So especially in the cloud, we've got some really good case studies showing how your TCO can be dramatically affected by moving to a consolidated multi-purpose platform.
Yeah, amazing. And I I compared this a little bit to website building and trying to use all these different plugins, and they don't always update at the same time, and one gets
Oh, yeah.
discontinued. So it's like, oh,
Yeah, like
God.
it used to be, so early web days, if you had, your LAMP stack with Linux and Apache and uh, MySQL and PHP, you were great. You had your web development, and in that era, you could have 3 or 4 technologies, bundle them together because they're different layers of the tech stack, and yeah, you could have a comparable story or a comparable challenge to, say, buying an Adobe product or something off the shelf. But now, with that complexity, it's exponentially more challenging, and you still have all those options, but there's still more barriers than ever before for keeping them all running smoothly together.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got another good question here. So I'm saying you said you have on-prem and cloud services, but can you move from one to the other? For example, develop locally and then scale into cloud as the product is launched, or say vice versa in some fashion.
hmm Yeah, a lot of developers will use an on-prem version, and you can even get it on your own laptop, like and run test environments in your own enterprise before even moving it to the cloud. But that one component I didn't spend a lot of time focusing on, what was this cross data center replication capability we have. So we are a clustered service offering. So when you have more needs for certain services, you add additional nodes for that. And you can actually connect clusters together and keep them in sync with one another. So you can actually do development in one cloud or an on-prem, and then connect it when you're ready for production, connect it to your other systems and have data kind of get streamed across to other systems without having to kind of do a lot of manual work. So no, we definitely have a feature alignment between on-prem and our cloud database offering. So there's no problem there. You can learn on either one, and you can get a free trial online and get started without needing to set up any hardware. So there's a benefit there. But yeah, it's made and designed specifically for that scalability, and you can scale in your own hardware as well. You don't have to have a cloud account for that.
Right, incredible. And I think we're about at time, so I'm just going to ask, what's the call to action? What's the first step if somebody's curious, they want to take the plunge or give
Yeah,
a sample with you
yeah,
guys at Couch?
just that last slide there, and then our downloaded handout that we have available for your viewers will get you up and running. You can go to cloud.couchbase.com and sign up there for free. Give it a whirl. We have sandbox resources and tutorials that are available for many different use cases. And we have an AI-enabled management interface that allows you to even ask the AI to build your sample data for you and to write your queries and your SDK-based API code for accessing your data. So it can be really quick and really easy. We encourage you to give it a try.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much for being here, Tyler,
Thank you.
and we'll see you again next time.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Take care. Cheers. I saw somebody had shot a question in about the demo link, so I've just got that up again. If anyone wants to give the database as a service, I can't speak. Couchbase Capella free trial. The link is there, and it is hyperlinked, so you can click right on it. And there's also the QR handy. So I'll leave that up for a few more seconds if you were one of the curious folks looking to do that. And as Tyler mentioned, there is the handout there. This is a data sheet. It is generative AI, willpower, adaptive applications. Gen AI is not only changing application development, it will change applications too. So that is the title, subtitle. Check it out. It's linked there in the handouts tab. And I also have a couple more prizes to give away before I welcome on our fourth and final team here at today's MegaCast. So get ready. Hopefully you're still here with us, and because you need to be live and present to win. So we have got another $300 Amazon gift card going out to Tom Biskner from Maryland, and the Kindle Scribe is going to Lori Van Linden from Wisconsin. So again, huge congratulations to you both. As always, we will be reaching out after the webinar and let you know how you can claim those prizes. But for now, let's keep things zipping right along and jump into our next presentation on the MegaCast. I know it is hard to believe, but we are indeed at the fourth and final team here on our MegaCast today. Time flies when you're having fun, and I hope you're all having fun here. We're finishing off strongly with the Sentinel-1 crew. Not one, not two, but three speakers here for you. So we've got Josh Blackwelder. He's the Deputy CISO. We've got Mike McGrail. He's the Data Solutions Engineering Manager, rather. And Steve Seibert. He is the Regional VP. And Steve and Josh are going to open things up with a great chat. And then Mike is going to wrap things up with a great product demo. So Steven, Josh, Mike, I'm going to flip things over to you. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Seibert. I'm RVP here at Sentinel-1 covering our Western area. And today we have an exciting topic that we're going to be talking to you about, which is the future of security and log analytics with modern data lakes. And so we've invited our special guest today, Deputy CISO, also here at Sentinel-1, Josh Blackwelder, to share a little more in-depth information around how this all works. So why don't we just get into it, Josh, if you're okay with that. Can you explain the difference between the Singularity Data Lake versus, say, like a traditional SIEM?
Yes. Yeah, happy to do that, Steve. If you think about your richest data source in your environment, it's typically your EDR data. The Sentinel-1 agent keeps track of every process and every connection and every network change within your environment. It also, has a very great way of visualizing this data in a straightforward manner that's easily navigable by your users. And it's always very rich and nuanced, right? And so the traditional approach is to flatten that data and send it out to a SIEM where you lose a lot of the richness and nuance of the user interface that we've built. It also is quite costly to send that out to your SIEM and ingest it in full fidelity. So a lot of people compromise and they only send the alerts. Raw EDR data takes about 2 terabyte per 1,000 endpoints a day of ingest to store in full fidelity. There's a better way to do this, and that's to leave your EDR right in the data lake and then bring your already flattened logs, like your Okta logs, like your CloudTrail logs, right next to your EDR data so that it can be correlated and enriched with all your other data sources.
Well, that makes sense, because if the endpoint is creating a lot of logs, then you, rather than move them to somewhere else, keep some of the interesting information there and just leave them where they're being created. So that makes a lot of sense. When you ingest other logs into the Singularity Data Lake, how do you normalize the logs so that it can be processed in an intelligent manner?
Yeah, great question, Steve. So logs can be ingested into the Singularity Data Lake in many different methods. You can use our already pre-built partner integrations where you bring an API key, and basically when you put that API key into the XDR integration, you get automatic ingestion of those logs, like from Okta. You get the logs parsed to the OCSF framework, the Open Cybersecurity Framework. You get default XDR actions. And in many cases, we will also stitch those logs to EDR events. So typically, in a legacy SIEM, you have to wait for processing before you can fire an alert. On the Singularity Data Lake, we alert right on the incoming stream of data. So this can sometimes speed up your alert by several minutes. There's a very simple pipeline on the ingest. The incoming streams come in, they're converted to OCSF. The data is rotated to a columnar format, and the data is stored in S3. So it's a very simple approach. There is no indexing required because this is a modern cloud-native architecture, engineered with modern engineering paradigms. So you can get away from having to maintain indexes and data about your data.
All right. Yeah, it sounds like the legacy approach is no longer scaling for today's data requirements, the whole concept of indexing and all of that kind of stuff. So what you just described sounds like a very simple way to ingest logs. Tell us more about how those logs are queried.
Yeah, logs are stored in AWS S3 buckets, and in front of these buckets, there's a massive global compute layer. This includes tens of thousands of containers that break up the objects into small pieces, and they run individual searches against each object. The results are then reassembled as the final result to the query. The reason the data lake is so fast is because it can utilize all global compute for each search. So as we add more customers, the security data lake actually gets faster for each customer.
So then that kind of raises the question, Josh, why have so many people given up on the traditional SIEMs then?
Yeah, well, many of the legacy SIEM providers never solved the underlying data architecture problems. For example, many of the log storage systems are using technology that's 10, 15, 20 years old. And a lot of the innovation has been around the bells and whistles that ride on top of the SIEM, including correlation and enrichment and behavioral analysis. The problem is that once the data size got large enough, this legacy SIEM model broke down from a performance and cost perspective. And you couldn't afford to store all the data you need. And two, the response times, once you had it fully populated, were not sufficient. This has caused many folks that have invested millions of dollars in time and money in their SIEM to look at more modern data structures and platforms to shoehorn their security data into. Additionally, these limitations of cost and performance have created a whole market of tools that put your security data in the so-called closets to be saved for later, meaning paying for later, because all those logs have to be re-ingested, which takes time, money, and slows your investigation when you actually need that data.
Gotcha. So it might be an obvious question, but I'll ask it anyway. Why is it important to have a fast data lake?
Yeah, to answer this question, we kind of need to talk about the current threat landscape. We're what we call the post-EDR world. The reason we call it that is not because EDR is less important. It's that cloud adoption and SaaS adoption are done. Customers have adopted cloud. They're using cloud on a regular basis. So having really good EDR is not enough anymore. You need to have visibility and actions available into all of your cloud environments and SaaS applications. And let's also talk a little bit about why the performance of the data lake is so important. And the reason for this is that you need to be able to intelligently stitch together all of your logs across the environment. We have what we call Singularity Data Graph, that will do this so that you can see how an EDR event is related to an identity event, is related to your zero trust event, and to your productivity suite or your AWS console. And you need to be able to see the context and how these events are related so that you can fire XDR actions to stop the east-west breakout of that event. Secondly, in order to allow AI analysis of the security events, the AI technology needs to have many conversations with your security data lake. If each of these conversations is taking 20 to 30 seconds to return, the AI can only have so many conversations before the query takes too long and loses the SOC analyst's attention. You know, at 30 seconds, a response from your data lake, 100 conversations will take about 50 minutes. So if we can have many conversations with the data lake with under a second, you could have, the AI perform that analysis in just 100 seconds. So one of the things that we want to be able to do is ask the AI questions like, tell me the most probable exploit path to my environment. And to answer that question, the AI has to go out to the data lake and get a response on all the compute assets that are in the environment. And when it gets back all the compute assets, all the servers, the desktops, the containers, the vCenter servers, then it could ask something like, what is the patch level on each of these compute instances? Then it may ask, what are the applications running on each of these compute instances? And then it may ask, what are the repositories that were used to build these applications? Then, what are the code scan results from that code that's running on these applications? And then it may need to interrogate the CSPM tool or your cloud configuration tool to understand where do these applications reside? Are they connected to the internet, et cetera? And so once it gets back all of that data, it can provide an answer to that. So you can see the power of your AI is really dependent on the speed of the underlying data lake.
Well, AI is everywhere in the world, it seems, and certainly it is super important in the world of cybersecurity. How do we view the AI as an example in helping solve, say, other security problems?
Yeah. So, one barrier of entry to SOC analysts to do their job is a lot of times they have to learn a query language. And so, traditionally you'd send somebody to a query training class for a particular SIM that you're using. They get trained up on the query language. We have a different approach at SentinelOne. Our data lake supports natural language queries. So you can just ask a very simple question and the AI will interpret that to the technical query. You could say, tell me all the users that logged in from outside the United States today. And it would build that technical query and show it to the user. This is important because we want this to be guided AI and not autonomous AI, right? So there's no black box there. You can see how it's translated to the technical query, and the user can validate that the AI is returning the right data to them. The second piece of AI attempts to summarize the results for the analysts. So this is a way that analysts can get trained on how to interpret what the data lake is returning in a very security aware context, right? So it sort of helps them develop more skills. And then it shows the raw data from the query. Third, it will suggest follow-up queries that the user may want to run. For example, in that particular instance, it might say, well, here's a list of all the users that logged in from outside the United States. We suggest you run a query to show all their activity while they were logged in from outside the United States. So you could fire that query and it would respond. And then fourth, it would give you suggested XDR actions. Like it might say, we suggest that you put this one user in a EDR network isolation zone so that they don't have access to any of the resources, or disable them in your zero trust, et cetera. So the natural language guided AI really helps every level of your organization, from a junior analyst that's just learning how to interact with the data lake, to even a more senior analyst, because AI will sort of meet you at your level. If you ask a very technical question, it's the AI is going to respond in a very technical way to that question. And third, management can self-serve without having to go to one of the security people that still remembers how to write the queries for their particular SIM. So the CISO can go in and say, are we affected by this particular CVE? And it will return the data, and they can interpret that. So it really kind of enables every level of your organization for more productivity, and kind of levels the playing field in terms of like who can interact with the security data. So it's pretty exciting, honestly.
All right, well, that's awesome, Josh. I don't have any other questions for today's session, but I think that helps shed a lot of light on, why clients are moving past the traditional ways of dealing with logs and using newer age things like artificial intelligence to get us there. So I think with that, appreciate your time today, Josh, and it's going to be exciting to see where this all goes, for sure.
You're welcome.
I think it's demo time. So I will start from the Sentinel-1 console. So for those who are not familiar with the Sentinel-1 console, here I'm on the incident page. That's where we receive threats. The detection are reported here. And the job of the security analyst is to come and review those threats. To get you started with the data lake, one thing is to configure the integration. So I will show you how to do that through our marketplace. So with the marketplace, you can do several type of integration. You have several capability. I will first focus on data sources that everybody knows, so including Microsoft and Palo Alto. They are great examples because we are all familiar with this data source. So here you can see that you have different capabilities for every integration. So automation, enrichment, ingestion are the basics. But you have some integration like Azure Event Hub, who only have ingestion. It's normal. Azure Event Hubs is only data processing pipeline, so it can only do ingestion. But it doesn't mean that if you don't have all the capabilities now, it doesn't mean that we won't have it in the future, because we are investing a lot in this marketplace, and we are adding every week some integrations. So stay tuned and look at new capabilities that we provide. So Office 365 is a very common data source, and the way you can integrate it is pretty simple. Here in my environment, I have several configuration of O365. So for instance, for a large company with different subsidiaries, you can imagine having different integration for each subsidiary. And when you need to connect and integrate with O365, it's pretty simple. It's a formula where you have to provide some information from Azure. And by the way, we provide all the documentation, the step-by-step guide of everything that needs to be done in Azure, in Office 365, to provide those information. So you can share this documentation with the O365 admin, and it's a matter of maybe 20 minutes to configure the integration. It will provide you with those key information, and then you can start configuring the ingestion. And it's super simple. You just have to tick the box of the data source that you want to include. So security alert, Azure Active Directory audit, and so and so. And you just have to select which data sources that you want to ingest. Here's some technical information. If you are in the European cluster, indicating the URL of the Sentinel-1 data lake. So everything is provided in the documentation. And also, if you want to use a custom partner, you can also use this custom partner. You're not forced to use the one we provide you for any reason. If you want to have a custom partner, you can use it. But we provide, once again, a partner OCSF compliant. So you just have to click install and you're good to go. You will start seeing some O365 logs flowing in the data lake. For some data sources, it's even simpler. Azure Active Directory can be configured really in a few clicks, because here, if I do this and I click authorize, it will send me to my Azure portal. List me. I have to create an application. List me all the permission of this application. I just have to click accept and I'm good to go. So even simpler. So, and I think Office O365 is one of the trickiest one. It's very simple to get data in when it comes to cloud. And you don't have to care about the scalability of the integration. If you are a small company or a very large company, it's the same integration. We do the work in the backend to scale and support the number of logs that we will have to collect. One last example, the firewall logs. Every single SOC wants their firewall logs. They are coming from on-prem environments. We provide a connector, but here, just to show you that you have access to the partner, you can even view the partner detail. So it's kind of complex, but we have done the job for you. And following the documentation, you will be good to quickly start ingesting those logs. And with the partner, most of the job, the critical part of the job is already done. So now I have some data coming in. So what can I do from this data? I will take this thread. So it has already been reviewed. For those who are not familiar with the console, once again, is the detailed view of the threads. What we can see here is already some info, some contextualized information coming from the integration. So here we have Okta that we configure from the marketplace. And every time we have a threat that triggers in the environment, we will ask Okta what he knows about the user involved in the threats, for instance. And we provide the analyst a summary of what Okta knows about this user. Nothing else to do than just configuring within a few clicks what we've done in the marketplace. And every single integration will be queried. And so here is my next scope. What we can do also is from there taking actions. Another part of the integration. So we've just seen the enrichment, and on the integration is what I can do with my other third parties. So for instance, on Okta, I can suspend my user. I can force a password reset. Within a few clicks, the analyst can take actions to mitigate the threats. So that's the first part of the integration, enrichment and automation. Now we'll see how we can deep dive and investigate. So here we have a malware coming from this file. What I would like to know as a security analyst is where this malware is coming from. Is it anywhere else in my environment? So what I can do, I can switch and open the data lake part. So it's already giving me the query where I can find the documents. So the very first scope is the EDR. So what the EDR has detected, while the EDR telemetry is telling me about this file. In terms of navigation, you have a lot of things that make navigation easier. Here, for instance, you can have the different event types. So the different type of logs that we can see from the EDR. So we have the file creation. From there, I can just click and extend my search, add some information to my search. I can do this on multiple values. I can include that in search, everything that will make my life easier when it comes to search the data. Don't have to be a ninja in the search language. The GUI is here to help me. And I can even navigate through graph. So here, if I want to matches by event type, and I can see the different event type. I can identify a graph, and from the graph, navigate my data, zoom in, and then go back to my log. When I reduce the time window of my search, I can then, go back to my log. Now I'm only focusing on 242 events. And now I can maybe focus a little bit more on my data. So just some navigation tricks that will make your life easier. And it's super important on the data lake side to have all these capabilities that will help you navigating the data very fast. I can extend the scope, the visibility I have. Here I was on the EDR, and I can extend to XDR. So here the question I'm asking is there any file path that contains these documents where we have found a malware? And what I see on the product here is now we are matching not only on Sentinel-1, but also on Office 365. If I focus on event type now, I can see here new categories. I can see that I have file downloaded. And so it can be interesting to focus on this one, and maybe we can, here it is, on the file downloaded action. I see that on Microsoft Office 365, on OneDrive, I have several other users. I have Jean-Luc that was already involved in the thread, but I have several others that have downloaded this file. And in a few clicks, I can identify some other points of investigation. I should probably go and check on their endpoint if there is something wrong going on. If I click on the detail here, you can see all the fields, all the information we gathered from the logs, and this is the OCSF format. And thanks to the OCSF, I can search the documents in all the data sources with one single request, and a very simple request. File path contains the name of my file. Very straightforward, very efficient, and I can investigate where this malware was coming from, and maybe I can even go deeper and maybe check if I can find some evidence of someone uploading this file. And here, let's wait a moment. I'm searching over a week of data. That's where what we call performance. We have few hundred millions of logs that we are searching. And here I find the guys. This guy here, this user, have uploaded this file. From there, I can pivot to this user and understand how he can get there. Do I have evidence of login on the Active Directory, the location of this login, and so on. So I can continue deep diving and continue my investigation from there. Let's go back here. So I'm clearing the search just to show you that here the result includes everything that we have. So that's the correlation steps, because we have the data is not siloed. We can see everything in a single place. So Sentinel-1, of course, but I can see also CloudTrail, Active Directory, Office 365, and so and so. All the data I'm ingesting are present, and every time I'm searching this environment, I'm correlating all those data sources that will show up here in a single pane of glass.
Well, thank you so much. Sorry, I didn't get my mic live. So if you heard some dead air, bad on me. I need a machine learning mic activator over here. Thank you again to the Sentinel-1 team. That was fantastic. Steve, Josh, Mike, really great. That is all the time we have for today. So we won't be hosting a live Q&A, but any of your questions that came in, do not fret. The team at Sentinel-1 will absolutely be following up. And you'll see a poll there as well, which is essentially your wish list. See any sort of follow-up that you would like in terms of additional information from the Sentinel-1 team. This is going to be the best and easiest way to get it handed to you after today's MegaCast. Now, I do want to also point out this is your last chance to access the Handouts tab. So if you have not gone into the Handouts section and clicked on those URLs and downloaded those PDFs from Sentinel-1 or any of the other previous presenting teams, we are about to wrap up today's MegaCast, and it would be a shame for you to miss out on those resources. So please do go click over there now, grab anything you want to hold on to and review after the event today. Now, for Sentinel-1, we have the datasheet, Singularity Data Lake, Unified Security, and Log Analytics. So you can check that out. Now, we also have some more prizes to give away, which means these are our final lucky winners of today's MegaCast. And again, you do need to be live and present in order to win. So our fourth and final $300 Amazon gift card is going out to Tyja Clark from Washington. And our last, third and final Kindle Scribe is going to Kelvin Gibson from Louisiana. And just to recap, these are all of our lucky winners today from the MegaCast. So our first gift card went out to Jerry Grasix from Texas. Second to Sandeep Pangala from California. Third to Tom Biskner from Maryland. Fourth, Tyja Clark from Washington. And our three Kindle Scribes outgoing for Matthew Cobb from Tennessee, Lori Van Linden from Wisconsin, and Kelvin Gibson from Louisiana. Huge congratulations to all of you there. And as mentioned before, we will definitely be in touch about claiming those prizes after the webinar. And a few lucky ones out there may also be getting a $50 Best Question gift card if you asked some awesome questions today. So thank you for that. Now, if you did love today's event, or you've been on several of our MegaCasts and EcoCasts in the past, and you are curious about sponsoring a webinar, whether it be a summit, EcoCast, or MegaCast like today, we would love to hear from you. Reach out via email at connect@actualtechmedia.com, and we'll fill you in on all the details on how to get involved. And with that, we are about ready for today, but I do want to mention that coming up next week on Tuesday, there's an excellent EcoCast, and this talks about harnessing the power of AI and machine learning to accelerate security analytics. So if you are having a great time today discussing data strategies and you want to look into analytics using AI and ML, well, this is a great way to keep this journey going. And again, Tuesday, April 30th, 12 p.m. Eastern or 9 Pacific. And with that, I want to give a big thank you on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team to all of our speakers and sponsors from Pure Storage, Nutanix, Couchbase, and Sentinel-1 for making this MegaCast possible. And a huge thank you to all of you out there in the audience. It was so great to have your interactions, your highs, your hellos, your questions, and the general energy coming from you to make this possible. And again, I hope that you've all had some interesting ideas and tips, and you feel a little bit more informed and equipped to tackle this challenge ahead of us of using data to our advantage. I'm sure you had a lot of fun because I know I did. And with that, I'm going to let you go. Have a fabulous rest of your day. Take care, and we hope to see you on an upcoming webinar very soon. Bye-bye.